Hello and welcome to episode 6 of this Inspire 2020 Visionary Leader Chat Series. I'm delighted to be joined today by Elizabeth Suárez. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, how are you?
I hope I pronounced that right. Is that Suárez?
Actually, you did. Yes, thank you.
Cool. And so you're best-selling author of The Art of Getting Everything. You're the founder of Negotiation Unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
You're a coach, a trainer, leadership and negotiation strategist, speaker, and you've also inspired hundreds of women to advocate for themselves and to negotiate successfully. A lot of that stuff is kind of very close to my heart because, I do negotiation and I've written stuff about gender balance. So we've got too much to talk about in such a little time. But anyway, thanks for being here. So
thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. So maybe just start for the first few minutes, 5 minutes, to talk about you and your background and your life and how you got to achieve what I've just discussed.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to have gotten to know you by having a common a networking person. So
That's
it's amazing the importance of networking.
But
I spent my first 15 years after getting educated. I'm a chemical engineer with an MBA that focuses in strategic planning. I was first in corporate America. I worked for the Tylenol makers, the J&J, Johnson & Johnson, that they're again in the forefront these days. And I was involved with one of their scares back in the late 1980s. So I learned a lot from that experience. And prior to that, I actually grew up on a small island called Puerto Rico from Cuban immigrant parents that lived under communism in the 50s and 60s. And they wanted something better for their children. And they went ahead and immigrated into Puerto Rico. So a lot of my leadership and negotiation, I actually learned it from my mother because as an immigrant in a country where she was not a citizen, I mean, it was, and it was this idea that she had these 4 children. How was she going to put us forward, get us forward? She negotiated for us to have better education, for us to be involved in better plays or activities, or even in a network. It was amazing. I was a little child and I would go with her and she was negotiating why my older brother needed to be part of this a group. And I remember just sitting there looking at my mother she's just asking without any hesitation. So I took that and I got extremely knowledgeable. I also like details and I like data. So that's why I went and became a chemical engineer. I went to Cornell University for that. That's where I started developing a very strong network, then went to Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And from there, I went into corporate America and worked for giants like Pepsi-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, you name it. And what I came to realize, Simon, and this is why I think you and I have such a strong understanding and bond, was that no matter how much work I did and no matter how educated I was and what network I had, I still couldn't hit that. I couldn't shatter that glass ceiling. I mean, I started using the terminology, the me, myself, and I syndrome. I mean, my friends, female friends in corporate America were my administrators because everybody else were men. And I just got to a point that I said, this is not right. I am a mother of women. So I was like, no, this is not right. So I went ahead and said, I am going to leave corporate America. And I left it with really not a plan. It was the plan that I wanted equality. Wow, what a plan. And basically since then, I have been focusing on helping women self-advocate, negotiate correctly, not negotiate only for the deal, negotiate holistically for everything that surrounds you and makes you as a whole, as a person. And also now, due to COVID-19, I have been focusing a lot of my practice on that inspirational leadership. We need to inspire each other. I have been working with high-level executives in the healthcare field. That has been my focus in the past several months. And the level of inspiration they need is beyond, I can't even believe it. They are overworked. They are frustrated because the public do not understand what is going on with this virus, because they are learning as we go along, and how the public just doesn't look at like, why can't you solve this problem?
Yeah.
So my focus, I am very strong in leadership and negotiation strategist. And right now, what I'm trying to focus on is give that inspiration and give those tools to help people become stronger. Because how I'm viewing I'm viewing COVID as the new spring, as my new beginning. It's
I love that.
springtime.
Yeah.
Everything is flowering. The leaves are coming out. You know what? So are we. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm focusing a lot on beefing up my YouTube channel with a lot of resources about that.
I love that, because we were on a webinar last night together with Sam Kelly, who connected us, and you mentioned that you're treating this period as your spring, and I'm kind of similar. So I mentioned before that, you know, I've got a corporate background, and I've been a corporate lawyer, and I've written books and stuff, but I've neglected, partially through my own fear, I guess, right? A bit of imposter syndrome. I've neglected my online portfolio, right? And so I've spent the last 9 weeks. This has been my digital spring. So in 9 weeks, with the help of Sam and other stuff I've done, I've created this new Inspire Leader series. I've beefed up my YouTube channel. I've now got really heavily into Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm launching what's called the Haigh Institute on my website. So I'll have webinars. I've got a new course. And I think that's really important, because at these times we can do two things. We can either just feel sorry for ourselves and close in on ourselves, or we can treat this, as you said, as that spring to develop ourselves. And I think that's why I asked you to be on this, because the purpose of this series is to talk to people who are doing it for themselves, who have struggled themselves, who are aware of the struggles out there, but are using this as an opportunity to move themselves and others on. So it was great to hear that. And then the other thing you mentioned, that the whole area of gender balance, right? Yes. So this is a subject really, really close to my heart. So I come from, you know, I'm living at home here with a wife and 2 daughters, right? I'm surrounded by females, right? I was brought up predominantly by my mother. And in my corporate life, I've often felt that, you know, that it's been so skewed to middle class, middle-aged, as I am now, right? Middle class, middle-aged white men, right? And yet most businesses are sub-optimized. Most businesses don't achieve what they need to. You know, I don't know whether you know, but 60% of mergers and acquisitions fail because businesses don't have that gender balance. So then I started researching this and looked into the work of Sheryl Sandberg and others, and I wrote an article about it. And it's really clear that if businesses got over their biases and they had more of a gender balance, so the feminine gender in all of us is, you know, empathy, communication, the process, right? Whereas the masculine, which is in you and it's in me as well, is the results, and it's testosterone and ego and its outcome. If organizations could blend those two more, you'd see the results improve. And this has been proven in military negotiations and other negotiations. So the whole area of gender balance, how do we get organizations, because they know this stuff, right? They know this. Are they too scared to really do this? What's blocking them from doing this?
You know, that's a great question. And I have been working with several C-level, C-suite level executives, and yes, they're all men. There's not one woman. Yeah. But what I've learned from them, why? Because they have approached me. They said, I actually need your help. And they're very similar to you, Simon. They're like, I have a wife. I have 3 daughters. One of them told me, he says, look, I have a daughter, just graduated from an Ivy League, Harvard University, then went to Oxford in England. And she just lost 2 amazing job opportunities to a guy, only because the guy's father knew the other person's father. I mean, whatever it was. Yeah. And he said, this is ridiculous. He says, I bet you I have done that. And it was interesting. I said, yes, the issue is that we women, we are not in the right networks. We are not in the networks where all these executives, C-level executives, are residing and are doing their day-to-day lives. So am I going to bash those men? No, I'm not. What we need to do is educate them and ask them to open their networks and ask them to listen to us while we're listening to them. This is not a
Yeah,
one-way street, ladies. I always will say that. This
absolutely.
is a two-way, that we
Yeah,
better understand each other.
yeah,
And that's what I did with my best-selling book, The Art of Getting Everything. It talks about negotiation. It is center in negotiation, but it's
yeah,
also the fact that you need to consider your family responsibilities, and you also need to consider your interests and how you recharge yourself. That this is
yeah,
not just about cutting the deal, because if it's just about cutting the deal, what you shared, Simon, I
yeah,
bet you that deal is not going to hold. Once
exactly.
you have a more holistic, full control of the deal, I
Yeah,
bet you the deal holds better.
yeah,
I mean, it may have to be altered. I mean, life happens. You have to alter
mhm,
stuff. That's the
yeah,
other
yeah,
thing that I've noticed, and especially that I live in the United States of America. If we have gotten to a point that they're like, whoa, that doesn't work anymore. That's it. We're done. I'm like,
yeah,
are you nuts?
yeah,
Let's see what doesn't work about it. Analyze it. This is the engineer in me. Now I look at everything in variables. Which variable I'm going to hit first?
yeah,
And
yeah,
what am I going to fix? And how did that work? Oh, now it works better. Great.
yeah,
And that's where people's like, oh, if it's right or wrong. And it's not that. The
yeah,
art of the deal is that everything has to be part of it. And I think that's why you have been so successful in what you do, because you have that feminine side connection of empathy, collaboration,
yeah,
understanding,
yep,
versus the male side, which I have very strong. Let's get that deal done. Let's
yeah, yeah,
rock and roll it, because we are not going to walk away from here without a deal.
yeah,
Imagine if we balance both. It
yeah.
will be a beautiful, outcome.
Absolutely, and so that's what I found. And the other, so I lecture over here at business schools. I've worked with Trinity College, Queen's University, Belfast, Southampton in the UK, good universities, and I also run a program at an American college here called IES Abroad, and I teach fourth year undergraduates negotiation, and the course is called The Heart and the Mind of the Negotiator, and
Oh,
I'm using it's not my name. I'm using a syllabus by a female professor, Professor Lee Thompson from Kellogg University in the
oh yeah,
States.
I know.
And
Yes.
that's her book, right? And
Yes.
we have her permission to use the book. But I love that title, because for me, I've written 2 books on deal making and closing deals, et cetera, et cetera. And I've lived the whole world of closing deals. I've worked for Dell and Xilinx, the big American multinationals in tech. But the best deal makers are in touch with they have 3 brains. They have the mind brain, their heart brain, and their gut brain, right?
Brain.
And
Yes.
and and they have that awareness, that empathy, and a lot of the more feminine traits. But also, you've got to be prepared, and this is really relevant today for businesses leaders need to make courageous decisions, right? Sometimes they need to lay off staff. Sometimes they need to call in
Mhm.
credit lines. But you can do that in a calm, courageous, compassionate way, but you can also be courageous, and I talk to my students about, and I always ask questions, do you think the best deal makers are hard-nosed or soft, or are they pragmatic? And the answer is they're pragmatic. If you need to use the hard tactics, the more macho ones, then you can use them, but you rarely succeed if you just use one.
Yes.
uh, so in terms of the work you do, I mean, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing your clients face? Is it more around their self-perception? Is it more about lack of confidence? What are the main issues your clients are facing?
It is both. I can tell you what, especially that my clients are at quite high level, is it all gets fed right now from the uncertainty.
Yeah,
The individuals I have worked with very successfully for years is the fact that they have been successful because there's always a plan, and there's always a revision of the plan, and there's
yeah,
always an accountability for the plan. So, I mean, you and I, we worked in corporations.
yeah,
That's how we operate.
yep,
And all of a sudden, there's this uncertainty of, are we opening? Are we not opening? Are
I
we
know.
partial opening? What does that mean? I mean, there is such a level of uncertainty and everything that
Yeah,
generates that fear of not coming across like you know what you're doing. So
yeah,
I am actually coaching several executives right now of saying how to be a strong leader. And a strong leader means is that there's a two-way street, that you
yeah,
first step, you stand and you say, this is what I knew.
yeah,
Did I miss something? Okay, tell me. this is what I don't know. So I need help on this.
Yeah.
Somebody help me with this. Let's brainstorm, etc. And then the third one is, are we checking, like, is this working? Do we need to add more people to this?
Yeah.
Or do we need to, like, not focus as much on that? So it's this aspect that you have to show to the world, I do not know everything.
Yeah.
And the aspect of, I need everybody else, because this,
Yeah.
even though I am the leader, even though I'm the CEO or the vice president or the director, yes, I know I'm going to have to make a decision, but I cannot make the decision just by myself. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to gather that info. I need that collaboration. I need that empathy to understand what you're telling me, even though when you're telling me, I do not agree. But I have to be understanding to listen to you. And then at the end, yes, I have to make the tough decision. And if it's the wrong decision, then you have to step up and say, it's the wrong decision, because what's going on with the pandemic,
Yeah.
now we know X more than Y.
Yeah.
So that's what it is I see it all fueled by that one word, uncertainty. So
Yeah.
then that fuels fear. And then that feels like I have to show to the world that I am strong, rather than saying, you know what, this is what I know. This is what I need to know. Who's
Yeah.
with me? Let's work on this together.
There's so much in this, we could talk for hours, but
I know.
you're right, because the clients, so I coach and I mentor as much as well as I write and I lecture and I consult. I do a lot of things, right? But the clients that I coach and mentor, I also have programs with Irish government bodies, the Irish Small Medium Enterprise Organization. I do programs there, and one of the programs I've just literally launched with them, so this is Irish government funded body, the title of it is Building Confidence to Rebalance Your Business, right? Building confidence to rebalance your business. And it's very precious to me, because that title and that course came out of conversations I've had with people over the last 2 months, right? Male and female, but more male, fun enough. Men, a lot of men in positions of power, right? Because of some of the things you've mentioned before, because they haven't been challenged in the past, because they have been in the club, because they haven't had to double think, because they haven't had to juggle lots of things like women, right? They haven't had to face crisis like this, right? So I'm finding a lot of men are coping less well than women, because they don't know what to do, right? They just don't know. So some of my male clients are saying, what do we do? How do we pivot? How do we, and the key point is, right, for anybody to pivot, to move forward, the first thing you need to do is own up and say, I need help, right?
Exactly.
I need help. And I think women generally, or the feminine, it finds it easier to ask for help, right?
Exactly.
And I think this is where people like you can really help male leaders say to them, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with showing, because once you show vulnerability, then you can truly move on. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. And it's interesting. I wasn't going to say this, but the people I'm coaching right now, due to COVID-19, they're all men. They're
I'm not surprised.
Men. But they are all have come to me saying to me, this is the most interesting thing. They've said, you know what? I'm married to this executive wife, or I'm married to this doctor wife. These powerful women, and they all look at me and they do, find a female coach that understands and is close to her male side as well as female side. And that's why they approach me. And I actually, what I do with them is I have a 5-step approach on leadership. And you saw it on the webinar I did for Sam.
Excellent.
I did very general, that chart of 5 steps. And working with them through those 5 steps, Simon, it is so painful at the beginning when we work through, how do you accept that you need help? How are you going to communicate that? They're like, oh, I have to say it. I'm like, oh my God, yes, you have to say it. Like, let's talk of who are you going to say it to first? And then how are you going to ask them to propagate? And how do you want it to be propagated? And let's see the marketing message behind it. And that's what I'm working on, that little chart. I don't know if you remember that I had that slide that I concluded with that slide, those 5 steps.
It was excellent.
Thank you. That's what I'm working with every male coachee I have right now. And it's, once they go through it, they're like, oh, because I make them say, you're going to go and practice. Start with your wife, start with your children. Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, just start with them. If you need to start with a dog first, start with the dog, because the dog won't talk back to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you need, you just need to. One of the things that I like to advise all my clients is that you need to train your ears to
Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
to you saying the words.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
once you pass that,
Yeah.
it's easier. So that's what I've been doing.
Uh,
And they're all men. I can't believe I'm saying it. All
I'm not.
but,
I'm not surprised. And I think for me, there's three steps. The first step is in the program I'm doing is building your confidence, which means first of all asking for help, and then looking at what motivates you, looking at your emotions, looking at all those inner aspects of you, and that takes confidence, that takes self-patience. And then the second thing then is, once you've done that, then look at your business and how you can potentially rebalance and pivot your business. And then only then, once you've done those, then you need to look at how you can leverage what you've learned to resell, to change, to pivot, and to grow your business. So just moving on. So the other interesting thing that came out of my studies, the article I wrote about gender balance, it's called Gender Balance for Better Business, was that historically speaking, women, and Sheryl Sandberg did the studies on this. You can see this in the Harvard Program of Negotiation. So she did the studies on this. And when, generally speaking, this is corporate America, when women negotiate on behalf of others, they generally get similar results as men. But when they negotiate on behalf of themselves, they tend to get inferior results, right?
yes.
And
Yes.
what I kind of know the answers because I've read the case studies, but why do you think that is? Why do you think that women generally, when they negotiate on behalf of themselves, don't get the deal as well as men?
Based on my experience, I'm speaking from my experience as well as a lot of the coaching I've done to female executives as well. One of them is we many times question ourselves that we do not deserve it, because study after study has shown that if there is an opportunity for a job, for a position, a woman will look at it and say, oh, I don't have that. So no, I'm going to pass. While the man is like, they may only have 60% of our, like, let's round
I'll go
up.
for it. Exactly.
I'm it. And then they start, which is key, which is what I say to women. We need to learn from our male colleagues. Then they go ahead and start calling everybody. Simon, I bet you do that. Like, call everybody. Hey, I'm interested in this position. What do you think? What would you advise me to do? You know anybody? Should I approach it this way? Whatever. And us women, we're like, send it in. We're like, oh, hopefully they realize how good we are. I'm sorry. This is like putting yourself together for a Broadway play or a play in England, and all of a sudden expect that people are going to show up only because you're a great actress. You know what? There's called marketing on this. So no, you have to do that. So that's one thing. And the other one, which happened to me a lot because I'm sort of strong and in your face. I mean, I can be that a little bit of that. Sometimes I was viewed like I was too selfish, that I felt that I was better than others. And that was told to me a couple of times throughout my life in corporate America. And I rebutted. I pushed back and I said, hold on a second. Let me tell you something. Because remember, I'm the only female. So everybody else around me are men. So I've been talking to them. So I even called twice to a corporation on what they said that to me. And they were like, oh, we didn't realize that he did the same. I was like, So you need to realize, however, I have very strong male colleagues that we have been friends for years, and they stood up for me. That's the other thing. Female, you cannot just do it as a rah, 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 female, so here we go. I mean, I have had male colleagues that stand up for me and they do, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm with her. I mean, and they will say it. They're like, I'm not sorry. I am proud to say I'm with her. So those are the three things. Number one, that we question ourselves. Number two, that we may come across too aggressive. And number three, that we overlook having a strong male network. We need a strong male network. I don't understand why we don't.
you've hit it on the head. You could have written my article for me.
Well, I'm going to, that's what I'm going to do this weekend. I'm going to read that article of yours. You know that.
No, that would be great. That would be good. So,
and I'll give you some insights of what I think. I'm looking forward to reading it.
That would be great. And maybe we could do a shorter version of it, another version of it, maybe for a joint version. Let's think about it.
Based on, from a coaching perspective.
Absolutely. Maybe.
Yes.
So just to wrap up, if you had any sort of 2 or 3 words of advice or wisdom or motivation for business leaders out there, men and women, right, during these difficult, uncertain times, what if you could whisper into their ear 2 or 3 words of motivation? What would you like to say to them?
You know, that's a great question. And no matter if you're male or female and you're the leader, I would like, and this goes to the president of the country I live in, you cannot do it alone. You need the people that are surrounding you. Trust them, listen to them, and move forward as a unit. Because together, we're stronger than one. I don't care how educated you are. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how strong your network is. Standing by yourself, you're not going to win the war. As a unit, you are.
That's perfect advice. So Elizabeth, how do people connect with you? What's the best way for people to find you?
That'll be, thank you. They can go to my YouTube channel, Speaker Elizabeth Suárez, and subscribe there, and they can see all my resources. And at the same time, they can follow me on Twitter as Elizabeth Suárez, or on my website, which is negotiationunleashed.com. So those 3, that's where I'm most active, as well as LinkedIn, Elizabeth Suárez. So that's where I normally hang out. And that's where I hang out and I see you, Simon.
Absolutely. Anyway, it's been great chatting with you. So I know we'll chat again. And let's think about doing that joint article. We can talk about that again.
Definitely. Thank you for the opportunity, Simon, and have a wonderful weekend.
And you, take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.